All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited, and I'm joined by.
Fellow co-creator, co-founder of Movers and Shakers Unlimited, Jerome Bourgeois. How's everything, man? You had a good Thanksgiving holiday season beginning, and your Black Friday shopping. Get anything?
Indeed. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you out there. Hopefully you guys are still enjoying some of your leftovers that you had from Thanksgiving. I always feel like on top of Thanksgiving, the day in and of itself, a time of family and being together with loved ones, is that you also have that cool element of just relaxing and having those leftovers of those sides that you enjoy so much, whether it's that mac and cheese, whether it's that potato salad, that cornbread, all of those dishes that we come to love about the holiday, in addition to being in being together with loved ones, is always great. And as you guys know, if you guys aren't aware already, if you aren't a part of my Instagram or follower, you know that I enjoy food. I'm a big foodie, so I enjoy different types of dishes and things. But I digress. Again, thanks so much for joining us. And just as we do always, welcome to this week's edition of This Week in Review, the show in which we talk about those things that have made the rounds here in the industry. Um, so, like, things that may have, hit over the course of the week. If you missed it, then that's what we're here for every single week, to kind of catch you up on the goings on in the industry. So, with that being said, as always, I like to cut into, some of the minutes that we have. So, just know that even if you're watching this live, you can also catch the episodes that we have as archive episodes, of course, and you can still be a part of the conversation, whether you're watching it live or not. You can use that hashtag TWnRMNSU. So that's This Week in Review, Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And then you can also be a Patreon supporter as well. So as you can see just down below, we have that Patreon link there. We have some cool perks for those that want to be Patreon supporters. So just make sure head over to that link and check out what we have available. And with that being said, as always, I just want to give a shout out to, our Patreon supporter, Joelle Bourgeois. So shout out to you. Thank you so much, for being a Patreon supporter with us. And I guess additionally too, um, we can just hop right into some of the stories that we have. I'll start first with a story that made the rounds regarding the music industry and dealing with the Grammys. So over the course of this week, there was some history that was made. If you missed it, and that was the idea that this past week we had the with the 2022 Grammys, there was history made in regards to Filipino Americans, and the fact that we had some great representation there with artists that are of that descent. So just to give you an example, Olivia Rodrigo, she made Grammy history when she became the first Filipina, as well as the second youngest artist to be nominated in four categories, four top categories, in fact, according to a story that we have in Variety. So Hap to Variety. Four categories, as I said. And we also had another artist, her, also Filipino. She landed 8 nods. And I apologize if I'm butchering, your name, but Sawiti, who is, she's Chinese, Filipina, as well as Black. She landed two, and included among those was Best New Artist. I know we lost Jerome just for a moment. Let's see if we have him back here. I give him a few minutes, but it's just interesting, with a lot of times when we're talking about stories like this, whether it's in music, whether it's in film and TV, and that idea of representation and ensuring that people who are, from all walks of life, are seeing themselves on screen, from any minority, whether it's race, creed, what have you. It's always great to be able to see yourself, up on the screen. And just to go into further details about a lot of these nominations, we have, as I said, we have Rodrigo. She, 18-year-old breakout star. She had her, debut single, or should say her debut album, I apologize, Sour, and her single, Driver's License, for Album of the Year, was nominated for Album of the Year, for Record of the Year, for Song of the Year, and Best New Artist. She's following the footsteps of Billie Eilish, who, landed 6 nominations 2 years ago in 2019. So it's just awesome to, as I said, to see, this representation, and to see that there are, artists that are being able to, represent what we're actually seeing out in the world. And a good case in point of that is, there was, let's see, there was a point that I wanted to bring up with one of our artists, where she was mentioning, yes, actually same artist, Rodrigo. She was mentioning that a lot of times with her, on social media, she actually gets, messages from girls, just as I was saying, commenting on what I was mentioning before, basically telling her, I've never seen someone who looked like me in your position. And, it's so important. We've talked about it with other mediums, like giving an example with Black Panther, where it's so incumbent for not just, the that current point in time, but also going forward in the future, as we're providing that inspiration for future, generations, that, yes, it is possible for you to, if this is what you want to do, if this is the industry you want to be in, whether it's music, whether it's in film and TV, or any other aspect of entertainment, it is possible for you. So I'm gonna follow up and see if my co-host is back. It looks like he is, and I'll punt it over to him, so that way he can, get put in his 2 cents. So give me 1 second. All right, Jerome, you back with us? Let me
Yeah,
see.
yeah. My bad, technical difficulties, but it's all
No
good.
worries.
That's why we're thankful. I'm thankful to have a co-host like you. So we can share these stories together. That's how we do it. But yeah, yeah.
Right.
No, I thought this was a really interesting story. It's definitely big for for diversity, having her, Olivia Rodrigo, and Saweetie. I know that's actually how you pronounce it. I know you said, but hey, it's all good. But yeah, I thought this was amazing, because it's like, it's not just big for, like, obviously the African American community, but or the Asian community, but like, the mixed community too. I mean, it just shows a lot of us might not, might be mixed and you don't even know it. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know she's part Chinese, Filipina, and African American. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, that's really big for Filipino Americans. And it's good to see that the Grammys are, doing a little bit better with diversity. And I thought it was an important story, because, you just don't really, you don't really think about stuff like this until you see these nominations come out. And it shows that, not to just, not only nominating people in like specific categories, but some of them are getting nominated in, was it for Album of the Year, Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best New Artist. So those are, you're not just competing they're not just competing in a specific genre of music. They're actually competing with everyone else. And that's always important, I think. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see, how, if they win anything, or, and how many wins there are. But just to be nominated is always, it's a big deal for anyone's career. So it's still amazing. I mean, and these artists are so young too, so they have plenty of time to keep getting nominated too. So it's yeah, I just thought this was a unique aspect of the Grammy nominating process that just happened. So congrats to them.
Indeed, indeed, and to continue along that subject, switching gears to another artist, an iconic artist, if you will. is Jay-Z. So over the course of this week, in regards to the Grammys, Jay-Z has now become the most Grammy nominated artist ever. Just to go into the story, he has now with the nominations that he received this year, with his three nominations, he has been pushed to 83. Previously, he had been tied with producer composer Quincy Jones with 81, and
At 80, yeah, I think it
or I
was.
should say
Yeah,
80.
yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm thinking of 81 because I'm thinking of McCartney, which I'll get into a little later. And according again in the story with Variety, is that yeah, as I said, he has 83 nominations. He has 23 wins, and this goes back to what 1999, where he had three nods at the time, two for the classic, obviously the classic Volume 2, a Hard Knock Life album, and Jerome, we talk about a lot of artists here. We were just talking about in the prior story about just that idea of people being able to see themselves in these iconic historic moments. What are your thoughts on this, to have Hova um make it to 83 with 83 nods? Like that's insane. But what are your thoughts on it?
I knew that Jay-Z, like, he's put out so many albums. And then not only that, like, you can make albums from just his collaborations because he's been featured on so many songs. It's like ridiculous. And a lot of them are hits and they do well. And he's been nominated plenty of times and he's won. So that's not surprising. But to think that he's surpassing Quincy Jones, I mean, Quincy Jones is like, a legendary producer. He's been around for different eras. That's pretty crazy. That just shows how much music that Jay-Z's putting out. It's like unheard of. And even though he slowed down recently, the fact that he was still on, he was featured on Kanye West's album, and he did that song with DMX before he passed on his final album. Those songs are still getting recognized. His contributions are getting recognized, so it's amazing. But the crazy thing though is, like, obviously Jay-Z, he's won Grammys, but it's just as sad as like most other hip hop artists. There's only been two artists who have won Best Album of the Year that were considered hip hop. It was Outkast and Lauryn Hill. And even Lauryn Hill, you could say, because she sings though, but she's still hip hop. It's crazy how, like, I mean, Jay-Z, he's been nominated, and the time that he got the most nominations, he didn't win anything.
And here's the thing, carrying on
So
from, just continuing what you're saying or jumping off of what you're saying, he's been out of 18 of the 22, let's see, according to the story, and this is again in Variety, this is crazy to say, is that it says Jay, who turns 52 next month, has been nominated in 18 of the 22 Grammy years, since that time in 1999. Like, that's insane. Like just that longevity, and to be able to have that consistency like that is insane, to have that level of consistency over that period of time. Like, you could arguably say, what if someone was born in 1999? And you could basically say he's had the career as long as someone has been, on this earth, like, been nominated for Grammys as long as someone has been alive. That's crazy. That's crazy to from the moment you're born to being an adult. Like, he has had, within that period of time, been nominated, in the Grammys. That's insane.
yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And it's like, I think it was last year with Beyonce, she had a record for, I guess, being the most nominated, I think, female artist. Because actually, yeah, I mean, if you look at this, she was that's crazy. Like, he's married, like, him and his wife are just killing it. Yeah. Paul McCartney, he previously he was tied for second place with Beyonce. So at 79, because he just got 2 nominations and now he's at the number 2 spot with 81. So that means Jay-Z's wife is the most Grammy nominated female artist. and that's nuts. Now he's the most nominated male artist and artist period, and she's the most nominated female artist. I don't know the numbers are for win. It says okay, so it says obviously he has 23 wins, which is amazing. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see who has that record. I'm assuming it's probably like, I don't know, it's probably like Beatles or Quincy Jones, one of those guys. We'd have to look it up, but that's pretty cool. And also, another good thing about it that I like, and it's important that this is a story and that people are recognizing this, is like it's showing to anybody who had a problem with hip hop back in the day. Is like, yo, hip hop is here to stay, and it's competitive with some of your most iconic artists from rock or what, it could have been, someone like Quincy Jones has been in a multitude of genres, from jazz to rock to obviously pop music to, a mix of genres and soul, whatever. And like I said, someone like Paul McCartney, with the Beatles, being like the highest selling, I think they're they're the highest selling group and whatever, like the biggest, I think they probably have the most award. I don't know the exact number, but they probably have like the most Grammys for a group or something, whatever. But they're just revered as like obviously the best group. To have someone like Jay-Z in hip hop be able to compete with someone in that, and in the Beatles, just shows you how important and how impactful hip hop has become. And for some of these for some of the top artists in that genre are now becoming, these legends now in music, period. Like every other artist from different genres have to recognize the impact and the contributions of people like Jay-Z and even Jay-Z was inducted into the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame recently, just like LL Cool J. So these people are getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. They're being nominated like crazy, and it's a big change. It shows a lot of progress from when Will Smith was the first rapper to win a Grammy Award, and he didn't even show up because he was like, I don't think they televised it, because that's why he was like, I'm not even gonna go. And I'm like, from that, now he's like one of the biggest movie stars. So that's a nice little anecdote. But yeah, I think it's amazing. There's only a few artists who are like able to reach these heights and these of accolades and recognition. And it's important for your peers to recognize what you contribute. So it just it just helps validate and legit make, I guess, your contributions more legitimate to your industry. Even though like fans and people already know that these guys are great artists regardless, and the art form is respected. It's just good to see other people who are like forced to see like, oh wow, okay, yeah, this guy obviously has talent, even though he's not singing. And that was always a big deal. I remember before, like, oh, what is this rap thing? It's fad. Like, if it's a fad, man, it's been going on for like over 30 years. It's a long, oh no, what is that? Almost like you can say 40 years almost.
Hey, you're saying the same thing about superhero films, and look, here we are. So hey.
I'm like, yeah, what kind of fad keeps going? What do you call that after a while? It's and now dominating. I don't know, what are you gonna call it? So, it is what it is, but it's great. It's good. My only thing is I would like to see some of these big artists win those big categories, because I feel like that is the one issue that like people like Jay-Z, Eminem, Kanye, a lot of these big artists, they've had issue, because Eminem, he's been nominated several times for Best Album of the Year. And like, I thought he was going to win, but he never won. The same with, Jay-Z, same with, Nas finally got a Grammy. that was a big deal. Even Kanye West or, you do. The reason I say that also is because you got to remember that the Grammys with music, I feel like music when it comes to music recognition, there's more leeway to win because they do it based on genre. They don't do that with movies. Like, there's no best action film Oscar. There's no best sci-fi. You know what I'm saying? There's just best picture. There's best animated feature. It's true. You have best foreign film, but that's very limited. So if you win best picture, you're competing with every genre. It doesn't matter. You win. In music, you can still get best rap album or best rock album or best R&B, whatever, in addition to competing for best album of the year. So it kind of makes it a lot more difficult when it comes to movies to get any type of recognition for like being the best picture or best actor, But music, at least you have these other categories where you can get some sort of recognition. So that's why I'm saying it would be nice to see like people from big artists from hip hop be able to have some more wins in the major categories that it doesn't matter what genre is. And I would like to see that more, because I feel like, or even like a Beyonce, like I'm surprised she still hasn't won Best Album, because I mean, look at Beyonce's, her talent is incredible. I mean, it just makes you wonder though. I mean, what's what's going on in the voting process? Because there has been, I mean, I know there has been some controversy. People were saying that like they try to like Grammy tries to bring these big artists to their event to perform and everything by nominating them a lot, but then that doesn't mean they're going to win. And that was like the criticism I know, like a lot of like from Diddy, Jay-Z, yeah, there's I think even like there's been a few artists who've been talking about this. They're just like, yeah, you try to bring it to the table, but then we don't win the major categories. So what's going on? So, and I know like awards aren't everything. Of course, these guys are successful regardless, but it's just kind of weird. You're just like, what's up with nominating people a lot and then you don't win in the major categories? It's been kind of a weird love-hate relationship, I know, with the Recording Academy and some of these artists. So it would be nice to see that change, but I think it's going to only change as they keep changing the voting process and who's actually able to vote. And I know they're trying to make that push to make it more diverse. So, we'll see who wins this time. But you can't deny the fact that someone like Jay-Z has the most nominations, though. I mean, that's at least something to be proud of. So it's getting there, but it's still a slow progression. So
Definitely. And I know like the first two stories that we have, were music heavy, but we want to switch gears over to film and TV. And with it being a holiday weekend, typically during that time, they normally use that holiday season to release, a lot of content. And so what we figured, to close us off, this will be a shorter show because we have, some other things going on today. But with it being a shorter show, figured we use this as an opportunity to talk about some of the recent, releases. Ghostbusters Afterlife, has been out for about a week. And we also had Hawkeye, at the top of this week. We had Resident Evil released this week. Yeah, we had House of Gucci recently, as well as King Richard. So, we figured to use that time just to kind of give our 2 cents. Want to try to make it as non-spoilery as possible, yet still kind of give you a taste of, what our thoughts were on each of those. So, Jerome, I tell you what, I'll punt it over to you to start with King Richard, and then we can get into Ghostbusters Afterlife. Go ahead. Hold on.
And I think it's good I saw it in the theater, in the theater, even though you could watch it on HBO Max. But man, I think this is definitely one of Will Smith's best performances, and I really believe he's going to get nominated, at least nominated for an Oscar. I mean, I don't know who his competition is going to be, but he deserves it. I mean, he did such an amazing job. And I think the difference between this movie and like some of the other films that he's released recently, or that were more dramatic, is this is definitely also like a really good movie too. Like the whole, like the script was definitely tight, and it's very inspirational. I'll be honest, like I didn't really know much about, the Williams sisters' upbringing and what made them tennis superstars. And they really go into like how their father really pushed them, but also was, it's not like I wouldn't say he was like a Joe Jackson, or like really hardcore. I mean, even though he's hardcore, but it's just the sheer will and vision and positive attitude, and believing you can do whatever you want to do regardless of your situation. Those elements, those themes were really prevalent, and they really, I mean, like after watching that movie, it makes you think like, man, I could, you just can't take no for an answer. You just gotta, just keep going. Like, don't let anyone stop you. And, the fact, like I said, the fact that like, the Williams sisters, I mean, they grew up in Compton, and then their father, he picks a sport that is, there weren't really any African Americans in that sport. I mean, it's a predominantly white sport. to have two of his daughters become like the best players. I mean, it's like, if you think about it, it's like it's you could arguably say it's like one of the best coaching stories ever in sports. I mean, so but the fact that like the father was so, he really motivated them and and pushed them, but at the same time he was, telling them, why they had to do this, and he made sure that he did well in school and everything like that. It that's what made it so inspiring. But also I would say it's not just the movie, but that's also, the fact that, their father was from, I think he was from Louisiana, and yeah, I mean, he obviously dealt with racism and all that sort of stuff, and regardless of that, like, to him, like, that was, of course, the word, like that's way worse, the stuff that happened where he's from. So it's like trying to make his daughters tennis pros, like that's like, he thinks like that's nothing compared to what he had to deal with. So it's like, it's like just comparing and contrasting situations, like what really is, more challenging or not, and just going with it. But the fact that I feel like, I think that because of how he, maybe like how he spoke and like where he's from, the fact that maybe people in the tennis community, or just like the rich society, or the wealthier, demographics that are in the tennis world, or just in general, they're probably, I'm sure they looked at him like, who the hell is this guy? Like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, they probably thought he wasn't smart or something. But it doesn't matter. Like, the fact that even if he might have spoke with a strong slang or whatever, but he was, you could tell, like, I mean, he's a really smart and like driven guy, and he didn't care about anyone like trying to criticize him or whatever. He's like, he had this mission. It's like he predicted it, and he had this, and like the whole idea of like making this vision come true with his daughters. And it's just like, wow, like, you think that someone is determined or driven or works hard, after you watch this movie, you're just like, man, I need to be at that level. And then just watching, you're just like, wow, it's just incredible. And like I said, his daughters were so young, and they really, they were killing it at such a young age. But I'm wondering, would they have done that if he didn't push them, to that point? And it's just really done well. And then obviously they show, like, how how their mother was an important factor too, and the layers of that. But it to me it's like it's in the realm of, I mean, it's hard to say, like, to me it's in the realm of like even Pursuit of Happiness, like at that level. Because I mean, of course, that movie I would still say that's probably my favorite dramatic role that Will Smith was in, and I think he was amazing in that. But it's a different story, but it's still kind of in the same realm, like going for your dreams, but like really making it happen, having the vision, and just like not letting anything stop you. But and he had struggles in both of those movies, but like this is like, I mean, obviously the struggle in Pursuit of Happiness is more like homelessness and like just being so poor, and then you have to make it work. And this movie, the struggle is more like they're just trying to push. He's trying to get his daughters to do well, but since you're in like Compton, and like you got gang members, you got all sorts of people trying to interfere and like mess with you while you're trying to get this goal, accomplish this goal. Like, he had to deal with stuff like that, and you're just like, he didn't care. He's just like, he would, it's a story about protecting your daughters at all costs, no matter what, and just like, who cares about anyone trying to stop you or say, like, that's all they cared about. And like, I mean, I'm wondering if some of the situations really happened, because I mean, he got beat up a few times. I mean, you just gotta watch the movie, but it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm just really happy that Will Smith, I mean, he did start it. I would say he started this. I mean, even when he first got into acting, when he was in 6 Degrees of Separation, I mean, he did start doing some dramatic roles, and then eventually he did the big, obviously he was in, while he was in Fresh Prince, and then he transitioned to the big sci-fi action movies. But he slowly kind of transitioned, into like, he did like Enemy of the State, and then he started doing, he would go into like Ali, Pursuit of Happiness, 7 Pound. He would go in and out of like the big action movies, big sci-fi flicks, and then transition to do these smaller dramas, which I think he did a good job with some of his previous films. But I feel like maybe not all of them were like he might have been good in it, but maybe the movie wasn't the best. But this is definitely one of those movies where like he's good in it. The script is tight. The supporting characters are great. Like, the story is really good. And like I said, to me, it's in the same realm of like Pursuit of Happiness and what's another? I like Concession a lot too. I thought he was really good in that too. But I would say this is definitely one of his if not his best, but like at least his top two dramatic performances in a drama. And I like seeing that he's doing that. It's showing that he's showing his range. He's really showing that he's grown, he's growing as an actor, he's grown as an actor, and he doesn't have to just do these big, action movies or sci-fi films where he's kind of like, maybe kind of like playing himself, being the movie star he is, but like he's a really good actor too. So I think it just shows like it's the material, you got to pick the right script. You got to, pick what you really, I guess motivates you. And I will say also, if you watch some of the the documentary footage of Richard Williams in real life, like they use some of those scenes in the movie. And I went back and I looked at it, and I looked at the real footage, and I was like, yeah, man, he got that. and Will Smith said that that stuck with him such a long time. There's a scene in the movie where like this interviewer is interviewing, I think it was Venus Williams, and she gives an answer to him, and the interviewer keeps going on, and like he's like, why do you feel so confident, whatever. And then like her father comes in, he's like, she already told you she's a confident girl. It's like, why you gotta like, and I'm just like, that's the type of parent you kind of want, like someone who is like, it's like he's a lion protecting his cub at all costs. And you just like, I was like, wow. I'm like if you really think about it, like, because if you do think about it, it's also a commentary on like perception of like, are you I would say are you a smart or
a parenting style?
No, but also just in general, like I think also the idea of people who will question what's considered the norm or the status quo, because regardless of what the institution is telling you, like if it's tennis, whatever it is, and then you're like, no, I'm capable, I can do this. We have this vision, we're confident, we don't care what anyone says, even if it makes us look like we're stupid, we don't care because we have a mission. And I like that element of it. And he really was that type of person, because he's like I said, like this dude's interviewing her, and he's asking her, like, you think you're gonna win? And she's like, yes. And she's like confident about it, but he's like, well, why do you think? He's trying to like question her, and then he comes in, he's like, she already told you, why you like, and it's like, not everybody would do that. Some parents might just be like, oh, whatever, go ahead. But he was like so determined that his daughters were gonna be great and that they could do well at this game. Like he didn't care he would do his, obviously he knew his stuff. Like he would research like who are the top tennis coaches, all this stuff. And he kind of like, they show how he would pit them against each other. It was pretty cool, like how they showed that. But like he was so like the essence of like determination to drive, like he really represented that. And I was just like, wow, like now I really see why he picked that story. And I will also say that it just show you I feel like Will Smith, he likes picking stories like this too, because it obviously inspires him too. And and he does well, I think, in films like this, because it's like, it kind of like, it's part of his values too. Like I feel like he's picking characters that have a dramatic arc, but also like he really, really, believes in what the message is and everything. And he produced it too. So, but yeah, man, if he doesn't get nominated, man, you want to talk about boycott the Oscars? Yes, boycott the Oscars, because the dude was amazing. Like, and the thing is, it's subtle too. It might be an accent and everything he's doing, but it doesn't matter. Like you feel the emotion. Like I said, to me, he should at least be nominated. And I thought it was a shame that he didn't get nominated for Concussion, but like he did a really good job in this movie. And like, I really recommend everyone see this. I mean, like I said, I'm straight up be transparent. I'm not a big fan of tennis. I had no desire. I don't even really care about tennis, but it doesn't even matter. The story is so amazing. And I'm just like, wow, I didn't know all these facts. I didn't even know about all this stuff with Serena Venus Williams growing up, but I was just like, wow, this is really, it's just a really interesting, like kind of like fish out of water, inspirational, compelling drama. And like I said, man, it makes you have no excuse to not pursue what you're trying to pursue, and just you keep working at it, and like don't let anybody stop you. And it's really is inspiring. So I really recommend everyone go see it. I know it's a long one, but it's just such a good movie. I think it's really, I really
no. I mean, I was transparent with you. I haven't yet to see it. It's still on my to-do to check out. There's a lot that has has been going on behind the scenes in terms of things to make available for you guys. So You will see the fruits of that labor very soon, as to why I haven't been able to catch up on some of those things. Not all things, mind you, but at least some of it. But with that in mind, I'll switch gears over to Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'll be honest, when I checked out, or when I was planning on seeing this film, I knew I was always going to see it, but it was just the idea of, okay, with considering what I always talk about when it comes to sequels and that period of time from one installment to the other. And then we had the recent Ghostbusters, which was I mean, I appreciated the idea of doing something different, but yet at the same time it just didn't it just didn't hit for me. So, like, going into this film of them bringing back the original characters, it was just it, I tried to have an open mind, and in having that open mind and not really having any expectations, I was very much surprised with what I got. They do have a, premise that they established with to modernize the story. However, there's a lot in there, for you to enjoy if you love Ghostbusters. If you love the lore and those story threads that were established in other installments, there's stuff in there, for you to appreciate that you'll enjoy. There are a lot of surprises in there. I'm not going to spoil, what that is. But it's very much a film where it works as a great sequel to, even if you don't even count, the original, if you don't count Ghostbusters 2, it still functions as a good sequel to the original Ghostbusters, because I feel like it comes full circle with what they do, with what they have happen with the characters, and even believe it or not, even with and I'll try not to make that spoiler, even with what they do with the conflict of what they're going up against. Like, there's a very full circle element to that, versus what transpires in the first film. So with that in mind, and I feel, considering what they do with the story, what they do with a lot of those Easter eggs, the way they execute it, it makes a lot of sense why it was released on Thanksgiving. Because I feel like, considering the theme of Thanksgiving, of togetherness, and you know being in union, with your loved ones, there's a great deal of that in this film, and I feel like it's like a perfect fit for the holiday season. So, Jerome, what were your thoughts? I think we were talking off stage about this, about how surprising this film was, of what we were expecting versus what we got, that it was far better than what we thought.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I wasn't that hyped to see this movie. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. They're making another Ghostbusters new sequel, because I guess people were disappointed with the all-female one, which I didn't hate on like everyone was. But for me, I was just like, what was the point? Like, Ghostbusters, there are 4 guys. I mean, you have female characters, but I'm not a big fan of people just trying to, like, let's just take something that was famous or people love and then just like put women in there, or let's just put whoever place. I mean, I'd rather people do their own version, have their own like characters, or make their own story up, but whatever. I mean, but so I kind of felt like this was like they were trying to make up for that, and I was like, okay, give it another shot. But then I was like, this just basically looks like a Stranger Things version of Ghostbusters, which it kind of was, but it worked though. I mean, like I said, and I wasn't thinking that it was. I had a feeling it still would have been pretty good, because look, I mean, if Jason Reitman's directing it, I mean, it's Ivan Reitman's son, the guy who directed the original Ghostbuster movies. And so he's not gonna sully his dad's name. He's not gonna make his dad look bad. I mean, it's like keeping it in the family, so he has a big responsibility. But he still made it his own. And like I said, they took a different angle. So what I thought was particularly interesting was the idea of, like, yeah, I mean, it's not really like, I mean, it's a sequel, but it's more like, a kind of bridging the gap to like a newer generation, but you're also connecting to the past to the point where it's the people who like the original series, like they'd enjoy it too. Um, but it also wasn't like a straight up remake like Star Wars was doing. You know what I'm saying? Like redoing everything. So I appreciate that.
Requel, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like with the new ones, like just redoing it your own. Yeah, recall. Like we said, recall. Yes, which has been very rampant in Hollywood recently. And we know I'm not a big fan of that, even though you're still gonna enjoy it, but whatever. But I appreciated that. I appreciated how they kind of made it like its own story. You had these new characters, and then slowly stuff that happened in it unravels, and you're like, oh wait, this is connected. Oh, cool, this is connected to the other movie. Like they made it was a good connection, and it's like, it also, I felt like the perspective of just like how they were unraveling and finding more about like what's going on in this town and how it does relate to the original Ghostbusters. Well, I mean, whatever. Anyway, you see in the trailer how they already showed that, but that it almost kind of gives you like it almost gives audience like audience perspective in the movie. It's like, oh wow, this is happening, boom boom, and then it's like you kind of look at it from that perspective, but then also it's a different story too, and you're seeing it from a younger, these younger kids' perspective. So, yeah, I mean, and I thought I enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm not gonna give away anything, but the story is done so well in a way to accommodate for
what's happened, in
no,
real
but
life.
also and also for actors. Also, I'll just say for actors in general, for actors that are in the film, like I feel like people need to watch this movie as a blueprint for like maybe other franchises where if people aren't available,
and to bridge that gap between
generations. If people aren't available, you can make it. You can make the story also honor and have a be like, I guess, tasteful and have a good be a good follow up to an original trilogy or original batch of films that people love and that are nostalgic. I mean, like I said, to me, it's hard to say really. Like, I mean, of course, like I don't know if I would. Yeah, I wouldn't say like, oh, this is better than like of course the other two. Like to me, it was still a good movie. I still feel like it's its own film, kind of, but it's just in that universe, really. So it's hard to really compare it, but to like the other two. But yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't even try to compare it. But I was like, I guess if they were gonna do something, if they were gonna make a new film that's still connected to that genre, like it was an interesting take on how they did it. And like I said, I appreciate when a filmmaker tries to make like its own film in a franchise instead of just trying to redo or remake something or just follow the same formula. And like, what was the point? Like those are the sequels I hate the most, where you're just redoing crap, and it's like, why? Like you're not going to make it better than the original, even though like there are examples that are pretty good. But like I said, it's to me, it's almost like filler. Then when you do that, you're like, oh, we just want to whet your appetite because there isn't a good we messed up on some other sequels, so let's try and just copy. And it's like, at least they didn't do that. So but yeah, I would say definitely go check it out. And
I was gonna say, to your point of what you're saying, like I absolutely get what you're saying, is that it can be frustrating when story beats are done again. I understand the reason behind doing it. It's like the safe bet, but still in trying to do that safe bet, is better to kind of go in a different direction and to take that risk. When you were taking the risk originally with the original, that's what made it work. So why not take another risk when you are revisiting that story versus trying to take the safe bet and revisit the same story beat. So I mean, I get your frustration with it. It can be very frustrating. I would also say I understand why, with a lot of times with these major franchises and how much money is at stake, why they make that choice. But I always say, I challenge those of you that are when those movies are being made to it's easier said than done, obviously, but challenge yourself to go in a different direction versus taking a safe bet.
look at Marvel, they have tons of different They
Yeah.
have some elements that are similar, but they don't copy the same formula for every movie. That's what I'm just saying. It can be done. To me, it just has to do with a lack of creativity. I just think if people are like, oh, we don't know what's gonna work, so let's just copy. I think you can still have you can. I'm not saying you can't take some of the elements from the original and put it into a newer version, but you don't need to take the exact same
Yeah. No, I got you. I got
like
you. Yeah.
even if it's the best it can be. I mean, whatever is my opinion. Like Star Wars: The Force Awakens is still good, but it'll never be as good. To me, it won't be. It's still not as good as like the original trilogy. But I know people debate about the Last Jedi, but at least Last Jedi did its own thing. Like I appreciated that. But whatever. I mean, and I know even Rise of Skywalker had similar elements too. But I still felt like even in that one, they kind of had some other. They still were some other aspects that were different. But I'm just like, and another example, like I said, I still like Terminator: Dark Fate, but it's never going to be as good as Terminator 2, and it was basically a remake of Terminator 2. You know what I'm saying? But you can still add elements of that. I feel like, but just don't otherwise then don't make a sequel. I'm like, what's the point of making a sequel if you're just gonna rehash or redo
Yeah.
everything?
I hear you.
Or unless the original could not have been done well at that time because special effects and everything just were terrible. All right, cool. Then remake it maybe, or maybe it's a foreign film. Like with The Departed. At least they changed the entire location, the language, and they changed some stuff too in there. I mean, the culture changes it, but you're in the same world, or whatever. Like I said, and I always go back to Fast and Furious. That's why the first Fast and Furious, I think, is like one of the worst ones because they finally got away from that damn formula of let's just copy Point Break. I mean, I guess if you never saw Point Break, you'd be like, oh, this is cool. But I'm like, go watch Point Break. Way better movie.
I hear you.
That's just my opinion. But anyway.
But switching, I'll pass it over to you for House of Gucci, and then we'll wrap up with Resident Evil and Hawkeye. So go ahead.
Yeah, this is another movie where I was really hyped to see based on the trailer, and I will say I still enjoyed it, but I don't think it was as good as I probably originally thought it was going to be. But I think Lady Gaga did really well. So did Adam Driver. The performances were pretty good. Jared Leto. I mean, Al Pacino's Al Pacino. Jeremy Irons. And at first I was just like, yeah, I just realized I was like watching the movie. I'm like, I mean, whatever. You still enjoy it and everything when they have all these strong Italian accents. But I'm like, they're in Italy. Shouldn't they be speaking Italian? But whatever. I mean, the performances, of course, I saw, you see Ridley Scott's directing. It's based on that book. And the trailer was really, really good. And I think they had a lot of good elements in it that were showing the rise, the continued rise of Gucci and then the familial problems and the division and how it's a family, showing how this family run iconic fashion business had so many issues because it wasn't a sole owner. No one had a majority of shares. It was always the two brothers, were 50-50, and then it's their offspring had to decide. And it's you get all this conflict and issues because it's not they didn't have a specific structure and where one person made most of the decisions. You have to rely on other family members to give their 2 cents and make a deal with it. So that was kind of interesting. The only thing I will say, I'm not gonna give away. I mean, even though people can, the story is, it's based off the book and it's already known. It's been well documented. I felt towards the end, it kind of turned into a TV movie, kind of where they just were trying to finish I felt like they were trying to just finish it. We just need to finish it. Boom, boom, boom.
They were rushing to get to it. Boom, boom, boom. It felt like in the third act, they were rushing to get to the finish line.
Yeah, and it's I was it's weird because in the end, because of that, you kind of felt like it's almost like a TV movie with really big stars in it and a bigger budget. But like I said, there were some good scenes. I like the stuff with Al Pacino. It's interesting seeing Al Pacino as this fashion designer, mogul, and I'm it was great that they got him in there and they got Jeremy Irons. But now I can see why with some of the reviews how it was kind of mixed. I do probably agree. Maybe if Martin Scorsese directed it or something, it probably would have been better if someone if he did it, or someone who really, really, could balance that better. Because I'm not saying like Ridley Scott's great. I love Ridley Scott's movie. I mean, he did like, come on, he directed freaking American Gangster, you know, Alien, Blade Runner. I mean, a lot of classics. But to me, American Gangster, that's my favorite Ridley Scott movie. That's an amazing movie with Denzel. But that script was also really tight that Steven Zaillian wrote. I'm wondering, I'm thinking that the House of Gucci script, maybe it just, I don't know, the adaptation, I don't know if maybe they rushed it a little bit. I don't know what's up, but it's funny. Like there were some good scenes. There was some good tension. There was a good, journey of seeing like Lady Gaga's character progress and get into the family and everything. But I just felt like like I said, that third act, I don't know what happened. I don't know if there were people, I don't know what happened to the writers with the revisions or whatever, but that third act just felt like they just were like trying to just finish the movie and be like, all right, this happens, boom, boom, boom. Like I kind of equate it to like the Tupac movie, All Eyes on Me, where I still think that didn't do Tupac's story justice. Where, I mean, that actors were really good in that movie, but it felt like it was a TV movie too. Like, boom, this happened, this happened, this happened. There was no like really underlying theme or or it doesn't have to necessarily be a message, but just a really strong theme throughout that movie that made it more than just a movie about Tupac's life. That's why I feel like he needs another movie, compared to like Straight Outta Compton or Ray. Like you watch those biopics, they show their story, but they have really strong themes throughout the movie where it's more than just about, how these artists became who, like Ray he struggled with thinking that he was responsible for his brother's death, and he was blind. So because he's blind, he, his null and void, or his feeling of null and void and going to a dark place was using heroin or whatever, using drugs, but he still was a great artist. So it's like you had that dichotomy, and he cheated on his wife. So it's like, but they really touched on those emotional elements throughout the film and like what motivated that. And they show that. Same with Straight Outta Compton. It's about police brutality. It's about like excesses and like and then a family dynamic of friends who are like family, like they're brothers, but then they get broken up by this manager, and like it's about loyalty, but then police brutalities throughout the whole thing too. That inspires their song.
Same thing with Wolf of Wall Street, that idea of excess, and
exactly. But those see that, and that's why Scorsese is great at doing that too. But it's like House of Gucci has elements of betrayal, success, love, family, and all that. But I felt like, because that third act, like the motivations and everything, how they got there and everything, and how it just kept unfolding, it just felt like they didn't really plan that, like the underlying, thematic elements that match the story well enough. It almost felt, what it felt like? It felt like those Ryan Murphy series that were done really well, but just not as good. Like this one, like the People versus O.J. Simpson, or there's the American Crime Stories. I haven't seen the Versace one. I heard that's pretty good. Now they have like the Bill Clinton, the scandal, the Monica Lewinsky story. But the O.J. Simpson one was really good. I mean, that was really good as a series, and also they had more time throughout that. I felt like this probably would have worked better maybe as that. Like I remember there was a critic who said this, that it probably would have worked better as that, because then you could have unraveled it more, as opposed to a movie. But like I said, if you're gonna make a movie like this, you need to have those underlying themes and another. It needs to be about more than just the surface level story and like some of these basic conflicts. Because the thing is, like, there isn't much conflict. You're not really, the only reason they picked this story to be a movie or a book is because of the controversy within the Gucci family. There's betrayal and all that stuff, but like, I feel like you can't just rely on that. There needs to be more. You need to show the motivation why some of these characters are doing this, what is changing them, what's making them change their ways, and what really directly and indirectly inspires that. And then also, you go deeper into these characters and like, why are they the way they are, and what's the conflict that creates that. And then it has to be organic. It can't just be like something happens and then it's like, okay, now I'm just gonna do something. Like that's how it felt like to me when I watched it. I was like, I wanted to really like it, but I probably would still give it I'd probably get like a B-, maybe / C+. So, right. But like I said, it was kind of a disappointment to me, because the trailer, you watch the trailer, you're like, man, this looks like it should be amazing, and then you're just like, but hey, that's great. trailer editing.
Yeah,
Compared
right.
as opposed to like King Richard, like what I didn't even see much about that, and I was just like, oh, what's this movie? I'll go see. And then when I saw the trailer of that, I was like, okay, it's cool. But then you watch that, you're like, wow, I was way more impressed with. I didn't go into King Richard thinking like, oh, it would be so amazing. I thought it'd be like, oh, it looks good. It looks pretty good. But then I'm like, wow, the movie was even better. Hasaguchi kind of comes at you with this star power. You're like, oh, you got Al Pacino, Jared Leto, Lady Gaga, Adam Driver, Jeremy Irons. I mean, you know, and then you're just like, wow, was that just to make up for like the script not being as strong? I mean, I feel like that's kind of what happened, and it's sad when that happens because I mean, they had so much star
And
power.
it may not even necessarily be a script. It could also, you know, play a part into pacing too. So, you know, how it's edited.
No, but I think it's the script. I think it's to me. I think it's the script. Like like I don't have a problem with the dialogue. I just think the actual story. I think they needed to revise how the last act like unfolded. It just felt rushed. It felt rushed, and it felt like they're just trying to get through it. Like, oh, this would happen. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm just like,
gotcha,
okay,
gotcha. I see. I got you.
So, you know, it happens sometimes, but you know. But you know, it was interesting to watch. I think Lady Gaga might get nominated. Adam Driver, I thought he was really good at too. So Jared Leto, maybe, I don't know, but I think Lady Gaga, she probably has a good chance of at least getting nominated.
Okay, all right.
And I will say it was a different role for Adam Driver. I haven't seen him in a role like that, and I was like, that's pretty interesting. Like it shows the range of like he's a really good actor too to do that. So that was cool seeing that. And I will say even with Jeremy Irons, I mean he's a British actor, but like. He makes it work even with the Italian accent, kind of. You know, it's like I was like, it's just interesting seeing some of these guys all trying to put on this Italian accent. Even though, like I said, I wish that they showed them speaking Italian for a good amount, and then maybe start speaking English because you're just like, yo, you're in Italy. What? They're all going to speak in English with that. Like, it's bullshit. BS. You know. Yeah, I mean, I know it's Hollywood. They're trying to make it more accessible for English-speaking audiences, but you know, Shang-Chi still worked, and they spoke Chinese a lot in that movie, but it made sense. I mean, when he grew up, you know, like that's all I'm saying. Like, make it make sense. You know, like
you're saying authenticity. I got you.
When the Gucci people come to America, like I mean, they're going to speak English. I mean,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I got you. Authenticity. That's what it sounds like.
Make it make sense. Make it make sense, man.
But I got you. But
watch Narcos. What are they speaking Spanish? Because they're in.
But moving on to Resident Evil, because I want to be able to get to Resident Evil and get to Hawkeye. Resident Evil, I know you said you didn't have a chance to see it yet, so I won't really get into like a lot of. Did you see like the original? You saw all the.
No, I haven't seen the. I haven't seen the original ones, man.
You haven't seen
I played the game a little bit, but
okay.
I haven't seen the original one, so you can.
Okay. So I'll just say this. You know, I don't feel like this is a spoiler because they have it pretty much covered in the promotional material. Is that they try to stick very closely to the game, and I'll be honest with you in terms of like the games. I played a couple of the games. I haven't played all the games in the series, and this is about trying to, you know, play closer to the earlier installments. I came in kind of late in the game when it came to Resident Evil, because I wasn't, at least when the games first came out, like I wasn't playing those types of games. I was playing, you know, more fighting games, sports games. I didn't really get into like, you know, the horror survivor games until like I was in high school. I'll be honest with you. Well, not even high school. I guess a little earlier than that. Maybe middle school, like middle school / high school. So I guess when I came into Resident Evil, it was probably Code Veronica. I don't know if you remember that one, Jerome. That was I'll take, for those of you that are my game heads out there, that was like taking you back. I'm gonna age myself. Back when they had Sega Dreamcast, like that was a game that was specific to Sega Dreamcast.
No, but yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so like that was the only game even though I was familiar, I was aware of Resident Evil, that was the only installment that I played. So with that in mind, you know, but I had seen all the Paul W.S. Anderson ones that, you know, starred his wife, Mila Jovovich. I saw all of those. And with this film, going back to what I was saying, is that they go in a different direction in that they try to make it more of a period piece, and that based on where the setting of the game was in those earlier installments, they do the same with this film. So I felt that that was an interesting way to go, to not try to modernize it to present day, but make it prevalent to, you just said the word before, making it authentic to that setting of that period of the game, which was like the late 90s. So you have that element at play. um I feel like the what they did with um, the characters and the choices that they make with the characters is a little tighter than it was in the original installment. Those elements were a little tighter, that I liked, that they story wise made it tighter. Um, and I thought the creature design was okay. I mean, it's not like a super high budgeted film, so considering that they were limited in the resources that they had in making this film, I felt that using, from what I understand, the budget was for this film, maximizing, what they had at their disposal in order to, bring those, characters to life and those creatures to life, was good. The only thing, and it's kind of similar to what you said about House of Gucci, it seemed to me, and I could be wrong about this, but it seemed to me that maybe perhaps based on pacing, because if I recall, the movie is about an hour, and I want to say an hour and 47 minutes. So, just shy of a couple of minutes of being 2 hours. That probably because of that current runtime with the theatrical cut, that some changes were made. So let me see if I can pull it up here while I'm talking about it. I believe, I want to say it was about an hour and 47 minutes. But it seemed like in that third act, as we were, getting into the final showdown, the big set piece, that it was rushing there, and there were some interactions between characters that didn't make sense. And I was like, okay, does that mean this doesn't make sense because maybe there was a cut that was made here, or some things that were left on the cutting room floor that kind of filled in the blanks of what happened right here, on why this interaction, or this interaction that these two characters have, that doesn't make sense, considering how we got to that point in the scene. um it does it not make sense because there was something else that was in that moment that allowed that interaction, or to make sense. So let me see. I'm on here now. I want to say, I believe it's an hour and, yeah. So according to IMDb, and I thought that's what I thought, because I remember seeing it on Fandango too when I got my tickets. Is that it? Yeah, it's an hour and 47 minutes. So um perhaps that meant that maybe it got a cut. It was, they were asked to cut the film down because maybe it was going over 2 hours with all the other footage that they had. Because oftentimes when it comes to horror films, a lot of times filmmakers are asked to cut down the length of the film to kind of make it tighter, to make it more in that range of like 90 minutes, because for whatever reason, when it comes to horror, a lot of times that idea of like fast and quick, there's an assumption that works better than just really focusing more on the story, and whatever the story needs, maybe based on the type of story that you have, that it would make more sense for the film to be 2 hours, rather than trying to cut various moments out of the film just to make the film more fast paced. Maybe they thought that it was running too slow by having those additional scenes in there. But Jerome, I like you say, I know you were saying that you played maybe a couple of the games, when they were around. Did you have any intention of checking out this film when you get a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel. Well, the thing is, I'm gonna ask you though. Do I have to watch the other ones before though? Shouldn't I watch the other ones
No,
though?
not at all.
Or
Like,
no?
this is complete.
Okay.
Like, they're redoing it completely. You don't need to see any of like the
Oh,
Mila
okay. So yeah,
Jovovich
okay, cool.
films. And I speaking on that, I'll also say, without spoiling anything, I know we talked about Ghostbusters. Stick around in the end credits. There's some end credit stuff for that, and there's also end credit stuff for this film too. So like, I'll make that point also without giving anything away. But go ahead.
Yeah, two end credit scenes, just like Marvel movies, usually. Yeah, I mean, like I'll be honest with you, like I'm not the. I know you're more the horror fan and zombie fan. I mean, I like some of the zombie stuff. My thing is just I just feel like the genre's kind of been played out so much, but because this was a video game and you were telling me how like the take is different on how it's, there's creatures too, and the idea of like this organization this umbrella corporation or whatever is created, there's that element. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'll probably check it out. I mean, I like to check out different films anyway, so I mean, I just haven't got a chance to watching that. I mean, I know you said you saw Antlers too, and that was pretty good. I got to watch that too. So, and it's funny, like you were talking about that, and I was just like, what the hell? What are you talking about? And then I saw the trailer. I was like, oh, that does look pretty good. I got my AMC A-list pass, so I can watch a lot of movies. I mean, there's a limit, but I guess I also try to like be well, not completely selective. I can be a little less selective because I have that. But to see what I'm watching in theaters as opposed to on TV. But yeah, it's good. These films are only in theaters, so you kind of have to watch them in theaters. But yeah, I mean, I'll probably eventually check it out and see and tell you what I think. But I kind of do want to watch the original ones also, just to see, because I never got into them, just to see what they did with them. I mean, obviously it's a franchise. I mean, how many did they make? Did they make like 7 or something?
Yeah, I want to say
ridiculous
7, like 6 or 7 in the prior franchise.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But that's no. I mean, I would have to check it out and let you know what I think first. So
Cool beans. All right, so I mean, I haven't seen this yet. I'm gonna probably check this out once this day is done over the course of this weekend. But we also had, last but not least, of course, Hawkeye. So the Disney Plus series that follows the OG Avenger, the Purple Archer, Mr. Clint Barton. So it's following, his where he is now in his life, his adventures, following the events of Endgame, of course, and coming across a young Padawan, if you will, just like I know you were talking to the Star Wars, so I guess you could say a young Padawan that is potentially, we'll see, may follow in his footsteps. So Jerome, I know that they released 2 episodes to start us off. I know following that, the 2 episode release from here on out, we're going to get release every single week. But without going into spoilers, of course, what were your initial impressions of those 2 episodes?
Yeah, I mean, first I have to say is like I just love what Marvel's doing again when it comes to the TV series, because I mean it's pretty amazing that this is the 4th live action series of the year and 5th series if you want to include What If. That Marvel's releasing Disney Plus, which is pretty damn impressive. So, and they're all pretty good in their own ways, and they're, like I said, they're different enough to kind of keep you interested, and also, address certain genres and issues and themes, and they all delve into these characters a little bit more, and also just introduce you to different worlds or different, silos of this universe that they weren't able to go into, more depth in the films or in the franchise. So I really appreciate that. And I feel like, and I'm glad Hawkeye is getting a TV series as opposed to a movie. Like I feel like he doesn't really need a movie, but the show works better. And with this, with this show, like off the bat, like they're giving you, I mean, like I'm not gonna spoilers, but they give you different perspectives of events that happened in the MCU before, which is pretty cool. And it's interesting to see how that gets tied in to the series, at least so far. Like I said, I can't give a full assessment because I haven't seen the entire series, but for the first 2 episodes, I mean, I like how they did that with this one, because this is more like, like I said, it's connected to one of the original Avengers from the movies, and really also the you could say the one that is probably the most human, because he represents that, because I mean he has a family. I mean, obviously Black Widow, she's human too, but she was an assassin, so her life was more like, being like I'm sorry about that, being more like a assassin / espionage double agent, triple agent, whatever. And I mean, that's cool too, of course, but that's still like its own world. But this guy,
But we
like,
didn't really have that dynamic with him, with
yeah, I mean,
him having a family versus her
yeah, that's
just
what I'm saying.
kind of
So
on
it's
her
like
own. Yeah.
he's like the only one really that has like, at least from the human element of a human on Earth. I mean, of course, Thor has a family, but I mean, they're all like, they're gods, so it's a different, it's a different element there. And of course, you see Iron Man, he's like the playboy billionaire. That's not most people. So, but for someone who has like someone representing like what I guess like a normal person, or someone who's considered, or most Americans who have a family, most people have a family that are humans and like in this world, and he happens to be part of the Avengers team, and his power, he doesn't have any powers. He's just a really skilled assassin. He can kick butt, and he's like the best archer. I mean, probably in the MCU. That's you're going into that dichotomy of how his family, how he would be, interacting with his family, but then also, I mean, like, I'm not giving away anything. Like, they just started, but they're obviously addressing the repercussions for what happened in Endgame. I mean, if you've seen Endgame, you saw, how he was in that movie. So I think that's interesting. And like I said, we're seeing another street level aspect of the MCU. I mean, we only really got to see some of those elements more on the Netflix shows. I mean, of course, when you see the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you're seeing, but that's still more like international. I mean, that's still an international level because like they're dealing with threats with the government. So I still wouldn't say that's completely street level, but Hawkeye, he is dealing with more. To me, it's probably like the closest to the street level threats in the MCU now, until they like bring Daredevil back in and like Luke Cage and everything in. And that's what I liked about those Netflix shows, because you were seeing what happens, like, these people who are heroes in their area, and they're dealing with the element there. So and also, like I said, they're so great with these shows of introducing new characters and like bringing them into the universe, and then eventually, I'm sure, like I said, I mean, we already know about some of these announcements. Some of these characters, they're gonna have their own story, and then how do they connect it later? That's gonna be really interesting. I'm really intrigued to see how they're gonna continue, like what other aspects they're gonna connect it to this show, which I'm sure like it's already gonna be some of the stuff we already know from like the end of Black Widow and even with Falcon the Winter Soldier, some of those characters. I mean, so I'm really intrigued to see how that's gonna go. But it's yeah, I just feel like they're finally giving also Hawkeye his due, because like I said, he's always been like a supporting character. He never had a solo film, and like now he at least gets this series to like can explore more of his character and what has he been doing? What has he been doing when other situations are occurring off world or in another country, or like these grand international missions or whatever? Like what's he doing with his family, and like what could he be doing also to like help people out on that and on that side? And that's always. Oh yeah, well, I guess also you could say Ant-Man. He was the other family guy, but like still he has powers, so he has a little more leeway. But I always thought that element of Hawkeye and like Ant-Man, like how like they said in Infinity War, they're like, oh yeah, they're both, Ant-Man, he's on house arrest. Oh no, they're both on house arrest, but they're with their families, So it's like always trying to see like, hey, what were they doing with their families or something while all these big action spectacles were happening with all the other characters. And then now that all that's done, the Infinity Saga is done, you get to see like whatever repercussions are going to happen because of his actions from that film. I'm sure they're going to build on that more in this series. And what's it called? Also, just like how he sees himself now after all that he's done with his friend, and it's like how is he thinking now too? Because I mean, remember, like like he lost his best friend in Endgame. I mean, and like one of his good team members. I mean, Tony Stark. So from Black Widow, Tony Stark. So it's like, he always would keep his cool in the movies too. As like, even though he's like being he's being involved, he's getting involved in all these wacky, crazy stuff. and he's just a human. You know, he just tries to, he pretty much keeps it grounded. So it's like just to see like how,
Yeah, I mean, he does have a dry
yeah,
sense of humor, I feel, throughout a lot of it. There was one time that he did lose his cool. Speaking of that moment, you know, in Endgame, that's probably the one time that I actually saw him lose his cool. But I mean, even outside of that, like, I feel he is, and I don't remember if I brought this up to you, if I brought this up elsewhere, but he's always acted as like the heart of the Avengers. I mean, I know and this is my opinion, mind you, but I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you know, Black Widow is the heart of the Avengers." I feel like she, you know, acts as kind of like the matriarch of the Avengers in a way, where she's kind of like, you know, she kind of um takes charge a lot of times when, you know, other folks, you know, on the team kind of seem unsure, and she's willing to make tougher decisions. But I would say, in terms of like the overall heart of the team, I feel like it is Clint, because if we're looking throughout the installments, you know, he is that voice of reason, or that person who, you know, even
reflects the
outside
people
of,
that you're saving too.
yeah, even
That's
outside
what I
of
was, he can relate
maybe,
to that people are getting saved
but I'm saying
because
even
they're normal
outside
people.
of Steve Rogers, you know, he was that person who, when Rogers was not around, rallied people together. Like, I'll never forget in Age of Ultron when Wanda, like when she was unsure of herself, like he was the one who kind of gave her a pep talk and said, you know, I don't care what you did before this, but you know, if you're helping us out now, you know, you're an Avenger. Um, you know, the same, that to have that dynamic with, you know, a character who's now like, you know, one of the most powerful characters, and to be able to kind of act as like their their mentor, or their person that they can turn to when they need help. Like, even in Ultron going further, where he housed the Avengers for a short period of time, you know, when they were trying to like lick their wounds, so to speak, of like really, you know, having it handed to them by Ultron. Like, you know, they went back to, you know, where he was residing with his family, and you know, they had to kind of regroup there before they were able to, you know, take Ultron on again. So which made it so devastating of, you know, how it turned out, of where he goes by the time we hit Endgame, or at least at the top of Endgame. So no, I'm definitely interested to see, you know, what the chessboard, so to speak, of the MCU looks like, um with Hawkeye, and you know, his surroundings, and what he's going through, because up to this point, even with the other characters, it's been interesting to see, you know, where their headspace is, you know, with, you know, the dusting, the blip, you know, people coming back, and while it seems like all awesome and great of people being able to be brought back, you know, we've learned with the other series that there have been repercussions with that, and things that were unexpected consequences of that. So for
And
sure.
also, like I also say, like, you know, when they first started doing this, you know, doing the sequels to like some of the original films that came out MCU, like it really was only like Captain America who dealt with, like, you know, well, I mean, I would say I wouldn't say exactly street level, but it was more like action, you know, stuff happening, you know, political situation, domestic, you know, issues that were still a major threat. And he was really the force behind him, and then Black Widow. And then finally you got Black Widow. But now you're finally having, like, in addition to that, you know, those were really the guys who represent. I mean, Iron Man, of course, too, because he's dealing with the military, but he also, you know, it's still like its own thing, because it's more like military based and like technology. But like having someone who's like I said, having a specific like action genre and espionage thread within the MCU, like I felt like Captain America and then Black Widow kind of like were the only ones in that area, and then they still would deal with, like, you know, military conflicts and stuff on, you know, and you could say sort of street level, but not completely. But I feel like now you're kind of getting more perspectives in that area, because with Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's like he's continuing that thread, and then now you have like I said, Hawkeye, and then next, like I said, we're gonna have She-Hulk. She's gonna have the legal, you know. So I like how they're showing these other elements that while at the same time, I'm glad they're expanding the galactic realm, and you're seeing more like with the Eternals, and then now you're gonna have with Miss Marvel, and there's the Marvels, and then I mean eventually they get the there's I'm sure they're eventually gonna get the obviously Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, all that stuff, and then with the multiverse, I mean, you could say Ant-Man kind of deals with stuff like that, but he also deals with the quantum realm. So like, I feel like that's another level. That's still another part of it. But Hawkeye's primarily, obviously, he's still in that street level, like domestic. And also he can go back and forth between like the domestic terror aspect of just dealing with these geopolitical conflicts. But I'm just more intrigued to see like how many more characters they're gonna bring in and connect these different elements. Because like I said, they already showed it with the Falcon and Winter Soldier, how you're introduced, how what's his name became he's US agent, and then he's getting hired by like that's the CIA or whatever that organization is. And like they're gonna go in that direction somehow. And obviously with Black Widow and how that ended. So I wouldn't be surprised if somehow that gets connected. But I feel like now we're gonna be seeing more stories with those different characters, and then they're gonna connect and of course, Spider-Man's another one. But like I said, Spider-Man's dealing with multiverse and stuff. So like I don't put that in. I mean, when he wasn't dealing with that, yes, he'd be another one. And but that's also a younger perspective. He's like dealing with being in high school, and I like that's still like a coming of age
for sure,
part of it.
For sure.
But having straight up like characters that are pretty much like the action stars, because they're dealing with like action movie type of conflict stuff. It's interesting seeing that element too. And now like I said, they don't have Captain America anymore, who's like active. Obviously, I mean, he's really old or whatever happened. It's you have the Falcon, you have the Winter Soldier, you have Hawkeye, and then we'll see, like I said, we'll see with She-Hulk and whoever else comes in. Like they're going to be leading that charge. And how they interact and what they do in their storylines is going to determine how at least what happens on Earth in the conflicts that ensue. And also like with Nick Fury, it's going to be interesting how they connect that too. But he's dealing with aliens, Skrulls. So to me that goes into the galaxy realm. But they're connected. So. But just straight up like action, like until they bring in I'm really hoping I know they said Charlie Cox is supposed to come back and maybe Kingpin. We'll see until they bring in like Daredevil again and he gets into the mix, and then maybe Punisher or whatever. I hope they bring those same actors back. I think they're gonna do it, and even Luke Cage. Like we're just left with these characters to see that element, and I would love to see those guys interact too with these other characters because. It's about time, So, but definitely, Hawkeye is pretty good. So pretty good. Go check it out, and we'll see how it. I think it's like every Wednesday. It's on Disney Plus. So Disney Plus is definitely killing it, man.
All right. Well, there you guys have it. That's gonna wrap up this week in review, or say this week's episode of This Week.
40th episode, the big 40th episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely, guys. Yes, thank you guys so much. So with that being said, I'll punt it over to you, Jerome. Tell folks where they can find you.
Definitely, yes. You could check me out at JW Bourgeois 21. There you go. On Instagram and Twitter. And you could follow us at on YouTube at you could definitely subscribe to us on YouTube at Movers Shakers Unlimited, and also on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD. And if you want to support us on Patreon, you go to patreon.com, Movers Shakers Unlimited. And, just like, subscribe, follow us, share, and just keep tuning in. We're going to keep bringing you this great content and different stories. And, like today we did a review show. We try to switch it up. So, if we're either going to be in a location covering an event, talking about stories, doing reviews, or maybe have a guest on or whatever. Like that's what we try to do. We try to switch it up, give you guys some different stories. And like I said, it doesn't have to just be movies or comics, talk about music. We talk about different things, entertainment, and you tell us what you want us to talk about because we like to switch it up also based on what you guys like. So pass it back to you, Brandon.
Indeed, indeed. Thanks again to my co-host Jerome Bourgeois. Again, I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Choi ENT, which you see down below. You can also find me at Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. Other than that, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you guys soon. Again, happy Thanksgiving. Peace.
Peace out. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays.